Knowing how the weather will affect where you are or where you're going with pinpoint accuracy down to the minute, that's what News 6 can do for you. I'm meteorologist Jonathan Kegist on News 6.
Good morning, Central Florida. I'm Chief Meteorologist Candace Campos. We are continuing to track the progress of Hurricane Helene, right now a Category 2 hurricane, but already, even though it's still over 300 miles away from Central Florida, we are still already starting to see plenty of those squall lines starting to spiral through Central Florida. Right now, one of them is approaching areas of Orlando. We're talking about heavy amounts of rain, tropical downpours. Again, the reds and the yellows here, even because we tend to see these strong storms during a typical afternoon. These are tropical downpours. They tend to pack a lot more rain embedded within them. Right now, Claremont, Bushnell, all these areas here starting to see, again, that spiraling motion. As we take you here throughout the last 30 minutes or so, you can see how quickly this moisture is now surging in. Now, we did have a tornado warning just south of Brevard County. Just a few minutes ago, it was this warned area here. It since has weakened as it approached into areas of Brevard County, but this is one that we, of course, will keep a very close eye on. The tornado threat, that is going to be one of the big concerns as we head into the afternoon. As of now, Hurricane Helene, as of the 8 a.m. intermediate advisory, has it sustained winds of 100 miles per hour, making it a Category 2 hurricane. The latest forecast cone, we should get a fresh cone within the hour, still has it as a Category 3 hurricane, a major hurricane as it approaches the bend of the big bend here of Florida, Apalachicola, potentially into Tallahassee as a strong storm, even a Category 1 storm as it approaches areas of Georgia. Now, clouds and rain still showing the bulk of the rain and the storms, the big time feeder bands, all as Helene approaches its closest approach to Central Florida, still miles offshore. By about 5, 6 o'clock, it's this quick wraparound moisture, these squall lines that will be picking up the winds, dumping a lot of rain, and of course having that potential spiraling up a few of those fast moving tropical tornadoes that we of course will continue to monitor. Helene, again, officially expected to make landfall later on this evening. Impacts will worsen and conditions will deteriorate. For more on that, meteorologist Julie Broughton is standing by now with more on those county by county impacts.
Candace, we're looking very closely at the winds, and already the winds are continuing to pick up. We'll start you out with a look for those of you in Brevard County. This is our Launch Credit Union camera out at Port Canaveral. We've been showing you this camera all morning, those clouds, and look at the trees whipping out there with gusty winds. So current conditions showing winds are gusting in Brevard County right now up to about 28 miles per hour. You are sitting at 85 degrees. Here's a look at some of our other current winds. If you're in Mico, you're also seeing 25 mile per hour wind gusts up to 31 miles per hour right now in Cocoa Beach, and the Villages and Orlando both seeing wind gusts right now almost to tropical storm strength at 37 miles per hour. County by county impacts for you. Brevard County, you can expect to see winds gusting at times up to around 50 miles per hour. Already seeing some of those rain bands. The worst weather will be this afternoon and this evening, on average 1 to 3 inches of rainfall. Marion Lake and Sumter counties, you could see winds gusting close to hurricane strength. Isolated tornadoes possible area-wide in Orange, Seminole, and Osceola counties. On average, about 1 to 3 inches of rain possible. Winds up to around 50 to 55 miles per hour. And again, we are all under a tornado watch except Flagler County. However, I do think Flagler County, you could also see some isolated tornadoes. Now, here's a look at our wind gust forecast taking you through the afternoon hours. Notice by around 4 or 5 o'clock, that's when area-wide, including from Brevard County over to Marion County, down towards Sumter County and up into Flagler County, we are talking about winds gusting into the 50s. And as we take you closer into the evening hours, as Helene Center makes its closest approach to the west coast, we are talking about 70+ mile per hour wind gusts in Marion County. Our entire Pinpoint Weather team will be here with you throughout the day, on air and online, continuing to keep you updated. And of course, if we get any tornado warnings, we will bring those to you immediately. Now we'll send it back to you, Crystal.
Thanks, Julie. We want to give you a live look at the southernmost point buoy in Key West. The waves rocking there. As you can see, they're just slamming up against that buoy as Hurricane Helene churns north towards the Panhandle and Big Bend area. And you could just see how rough those waves are. Keep in mind, this is more than 100 miles away from the eye of Helene. So it gives you a different perspective on just how big this storm really is. Now, here at home in Central Florida, Marion County is in for some strong winds and heavy rain today. The center of the storm is forecast to come within roughly 150 miles of western Marion County sometime tonight. That includes the city of Denellen, where the police chief is preparing for wind damage, including downed power lines and trees. And that's where reporter Mark Lehman joins us live. Mark, you've been checking out the area. What can you tell us right now?
Well, the conditions are not bad at this time. Just some light rain's been picking up from time to time. Slight breeze, but those conditions are deteriorate as we get into the afternoon and evening hours. We are in Dunellen Square Park, which is a mobile home community near US 41. People have been preparing here. They've been putting down their hurricane shutters on their mobile homes. And I can tell you all yesterday and so far this morning, people across Marion County have been preparing for the effects of Hurricane Helene. The biggest concerns here are flooding in low-lying areas and tropical storm force wind gusts. That means we'll likely be seeing downed trees and spots and power outages. Here at Dunellen Square Village, neighbors have been securing their homes knowing strong winds could be especially damaging. We spoke with Maybelle Holman, who just moved into the neighborhood about a month ago. She told us what she's been doing to get ready for the storm.
You know, sometimes there's a storm and sometimes they say one's coming and it turns. This one doesn't seem like it's going to turn. But, you know, whatever happens, happens. You can't control it. So you do the best you can. I've moved my plants over and got everything off the carport and out of the yard and, you know, that kind of thing, trying to prevent a problem.
And back out here live, we have some people who still not put down their hurricane shutters, which they should be doing hopefully within the next couple of hours or so. Maybelle also told us that she had a leak in her roof that just popped up within the last few days, and she was hoping to get that fixed before that storm rolls through. But she spoke with someone this morning that that's not going to be the case. She's going to have to just kind of deal with what comes her way as Hurricane Helene moves closer to this area. Now, the police chief here in Dunellen wanted to stress that once wind gusts get over 45 miles per hour, that they will not be able to respond to emergency calls. So he wants everyone to keep that in mind and prepare best they can in these final few hours before the storm comes through here. Also important to note that Marion County opened up one shelter yesterday at Westport High School in Ocala, and that shelter is also open to people who have special needs. For now, reporting live in Dunellen, Mark Lehman getting results, News 6.
All right, Mark, thanks so much. Important information there out of Marion County. Well, stay with us. We're going to have live coverage as local news conferences and a new track on Helene comes in. And until then, now's a good time to take out your phones. Make sure you have our free Pinpoint Hurricane Tracker app. Our team of meteorologists will be constantly updating the information on any storms, projected path there. Just search WKMG in your app store. Now we're going to get you back programming.
This has been a News 6 breaking news alert. For continuing coverage of this developing story, go to clickorlando.com.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Chief Meteorologist Candace Campos. We are tracking the progress of Helene, but just like we mentioned just a few moments ago, we are watching some of these fast-moving rain bands, these squall lines that are going to continue to move into Central Florida. And for that reason, we do have one that's already spun up a quick tornado warning. So we do have this tornado warning. It's now in effect for Brevard County. So what locations we're talking about right now is areas from Southmere through Mims, Titusville as well. So again, this tornado warning is in effect for the next 30 minutes or so. These are fast-moving quick spin-ups that we are going to continue to watch. So we're going to pop the velocity tracker here real quick to kind of give you an idea. Now, I'm going to just start prefacing this before we start getting a lot of tornado warnings in the next couple of hours, is that these tornadoes are very fast-moving. They spin up really fast as that squall line continues kind of spiral around overall the general big storm with Helene. So with that, it really spins up fast. So they're not going to be that iconic afternoon sea breeze storms that we say are really clear couplet. Now, a couplet, before we get to that, is basically a red and green zone here. So when we start seeing red and green, we've got the reds coming and going from the radar site. So that is something we're going to continue to keep a very close eye on. So I'm going to just come around this polygon real quick and just kind of see what we're talking about. So you see general reds here and then general greens to the south. So what we're looking for is for a real tight circulation here with reds and greens pretty much closed in together. So if I had to guess of where we're talking about here, it's going to be just south of Whispering Hills, Gulf Estate. So let me kind of circle here and tell you what we're talking about here. So this is the zone that right now we're looking at for your general kind of broad circulation. This is a Doppler radar indicated tornado. That means we do not have any official reports of any tornadoes down at the ground. We don't have any storm spotters that have spotted anything. Now the problem is that we're also talking about big time rainfall rates when embedded in some of these squall lines. When we talk about those tropical downpours, there will be that potential once again of seeing some of those rain-wrapped tornadoes. Hard to see if you're down at the surface, hence why we rely a lot on our Doppler. Look at the last frame. You can see it has now disappeared. This is what we're talking about. When we talk about these couplets, they last for a very short amount of time. It sparks that tornado warning. Now we have to kind of wait and see if that couplet kind of picks up again as we continue to scan with that Doppler radar. So again, here's where the couplet now is starting to move. You see how quickly it's moving. All right, now we're starting to kind of see it. Let me zoom in here. So this is the couplet that we're talking about. Again, the couplet is basically a really tight little cylinder where the wind is going and coming from the Doppler side, which is why it goes red and green. So when you start getting these colors really tight wound up together, that's where we will have the best possibility. If there is a tornado out there and it is present, that is basically what we're talking about. So if let's zoom in here, give you an idea of what we're talking about. So this is South Street. We're talking Whispering Hills Golf Estate. This is areas, let me zoom out real quick, give a better perspective of what we're talking about. This is far north and east, north and west of Indian River City, areas right along South Street, South Park Avenue, right along the 40, this is 95. Sorry, I'm just trying to get my bearings here. Is this 95? Yeah. All right, so this is riding up right along 95 right now in Brevard County. So there's the couplet. That's what we're watching right now for that potential for a quick spin up. Now, when it comes to this one little cell here, again, around South Street, basically South Street where it kind of curves into Knox McRae Drive, down to South Street, right along 95. This is the zone that we're watching for that potential of a tornado if there is officially one down at the ground. Just because you have a spin doesn't mean that you have an actual tornado on the ground. But the one thing we're going to kind of rely on here really is that Doppler because, one, it's extremely close to our radar station. So we're going to get a much better picture of that system, or at least that cell, compared to the actual cell. Julie, I'm not sure if it got... Would you be able to move me for? All of a sudden, it seems like it stopped. Once again, we are watching for an overall tornado watch. That is in effect for all of Central Florida. That tornado warning again. Oh, there you go. I think it just caught me. All right. Let me see if I got, yeah, okay. Thank you very much. You must have reset something. Perfect. So with this being said, you notice that right now most of the rain is actually shifted further towards the west of where that center and where that velocity is. So it's very difficult here in Central Florida or anywhere in Florida to actually pinpoint a tornado with radar because we don't have those typical, let's say, Midwestern tornadoes. But what we really see it is, once again, it's those velocity trackers, and it's still that tracker that we're watching. All right, so we're going to pull up some Department of Transportation cameras right now. Producer in my ear just told me. All right, this is I-95. This is mile marker 215. For those who don't know, that's about around the Titusville area. You can see the clouds there in the distance. I think we're pointing southward here. And again, we're going to continue to watch overall very cloudy skies. But the moment those squall lines come in, it quickly picks up some of that friction off the ground that spins up those circulations. Now, mind you, beyond what we're looking at when it comes to the tornado warning is that we are also watching some rotation that is also happening in other parts of Central Florida. Although that's not a warned area, we are also watching those quick spin-ups. We've been watching a couple spin-ups happening right along this line here, some around Windermere, but it's not closed enough or not creating those signatures that we need to officially spark those tornado warnings. So again, anywhere in Central Florida, if you're seeing some rain, you're seeing the wind, there will be that potential, once again, of seeing prime conditions to produce that quick spin up. So once again, if you're just joining us, it is 10:21. We have that tornado warning that is in effect. This does include parts of Brevard County, mostly Brevard County focus, south of Scottsmore, down through Southmere, Titusville, Indian River City, and as far south as, let's say, Bellwood and Port St. John. So this is an area that, again, that we were watching. It's the polygon, for the most part, has shifted just right along 95, with the bulk of the heaviest of the rain now moving into Southmere, I should say. Let me put the quick motion here to see how quickly. Just about 15 minutes ago, we didn't even have anything, and then all of a sudden we spun up this one cell. Let me stop the clock here. Yeah, so again, velocity tracker is still showing that little couplet. As long as we're seeing those signatures on the maps, that's exactly what we're going to continue to track. And there it is. There is that center. Let go. All right. Right here along 95, we're talking Whispering, Gulf Estate, Titusville, Mims. I'm not sure if that's even a location. JJ, that basically this is the zone. This right here is what we're going to continue to closely watch. Let me see some of the threats. Julie is standing by. Julie, is there any mention of anything on the chat regarding this?
I've been checking in the chat, and again, nothing new has come out. But if you're just joining us and you're expecting to see let's make a deal and you're like, hey, what's going on? We've been talking about that threat for isolated tornadoes, and this is what we anticipated. And again, you're looking at our threat detector right now, so indicating the potential of some pea-sized hail, and also, you know, those rainfall rates. And you mentioned that you will not necessarily see a tornado. So do keep in mind you need to head to the closest or the most interior room of your home if you are in this warned area.
Right, and so some of these things that you're seeing, like Julie just mentioned, again, pea-sized hail, but some areas where we're not seeing any rain on the east side of 95 versus the west side of 95. It goes from barely any rain to about 2 inches of rain falling per hour. So that's why when we talk about the radar, when we talk about the reds and the yellows and the oranges, this is tropical moisture. This is moisture that is packing a lot more of a punch than a typical afternoon thunderstorm in the forecast. So let me pick up, let's see if the shear, because I know sometimes when we pop up, there's some shear. So there's certain things that you need to see for signatures. You have to kind of slice the atmosphere in different ways, kind of like a sandwich, right? So we first are looking at the rotation. We've got some rotation in that same zone. Now, if we put the shear tracker on there and we pick up the shear marker and it says, oh, I'm sorry, hold on. I messed up on that one. Let me find the icon here, a little pixel query. So right now we are seeing weak shear, which is still enough to potentially help spin up a tornado. It's just some indicators that we continue to watch real closely. I'm going to walk off screen real quick. Meteorologist Julie Broughton is standing by. Let me go check on some of the computer models and see what we're talking about here.
Okay, so let's go ahead and leave this with Lynx 1 as our source. But again, this is what we're talking about right now as we are scanning out on the radar. We are talking about tornado warning in this part of Brevard County. I'll go in a little bit closer for you. But again, we are talking about a lot of those rain bands from Helene working on shore. And with those rain bands, we're talking about some weak rotation. Let's go back in a little bit closer for you and show you again what is happening for those of you in Brevard County where you have that tornado warning in place until 10:45. Now, I'm going to step off camera because for some reason I can't grab the hand tracker there to show you exactly what we're talking about. But again, we are continuing to see some heavy rain. And again, that potential of some weak rotation on the radar for you, taking you in toward the Titusville area. Again, maybe if we could turn hand tracking off because that doesn't seem to be cooperating too much for us. That warning is up until 10:45 for Brevard County. This is just the first warning that we will see today. There we go. As we go in a little bit closer for you, that warning area has been shaved back a little bit, but again, all this area in red, so just to the west of Mims, up toward Orancha, over toward Southmere, and even in this area where the warning isn't, that is where we're also talking about some very heavy rain. And again, going in a little bit closer, we can show you a different perspective of the radar. So when it looks like this, it's not the view that you're necessarily used to seeing. This gives us an indication of how pixels are moving in relation to the radar. So where we see green, that shows us rain parcels or pixels, winds moving toward the radar. Red shows us where they're moving away from the radar. So we look for the red and the green clustered closely together. That's what we call a couplet. And notice we're not seeing a whole lot of that right now, but that rotation, that broad rotation has kind of been pulsing on and off for us. And that is what we see happen with these tropical systems. We see some quick broad rotation. They spin up some weak tornadoes and they pop up really quickly as we saw, as Candace just showed us. We'll go back to the typical view of the radar for you. We'll go back to the radar reflectivity and that will show us again what we're talking about as far as the rain. So we're going back to the Melbourne radar for you and we'll show you the traditional view there as we continue to to track this for you until 10:45. Take you back out and show you what's going on across all of Central Florida, because as Candace has mentioned, we've been back in the Weather Center along with meteorologist Michelle Morgan, and we've been picking up on some different areas of broad rotation within these squalls, within these bands. And you'll notice out over the Atlantic, more rain bands are coming toward you as you are in Brevard County. So going a little bit closer, areas like Satellite Beach, Rockledge, Cape Canaveral, Mare Island, you will see some intense activity moving into your area in the next 15 to 20 minutes. Let's go ahead and take a live look outside for you right now and show you what it looks like in Brevard County. We have our port cam ready for you, and we've been watching this camera all morning because the trees have really been blowing out there. This is what it looks like right now. You can see those strong winds out there. At times, we're seeing winds gusting close to tropical storm force. You can see those heavy clouds, that gray sky, a very tropical looking atmosphere out there for us. And we will continue to see more of this for the next several hours. This is just beginning. Let's go back to the radar for you here at 1028. Again, this is our area. This is our tornado warned area. You see in Brevard County, that tornado warning is up until 10:45. So going in a little bit tighter areas like Turnbull, Arancha. Going back to the velocity for you now that we're in a little bit closer, that will give us an idea of any sort of rotation. And again, not picking up any major areas of rotation, seeing perhaps a little bit just to the south of Turnbull. But again, we've seen that weak rotation, but that was enough for the National Weather Service out of Brevard County, out of Melbourne, to trigger that tornado warning up until 10:45. And the thing with these storms, these rain bands, they're moving very quickly. We're seeing heavy rain within these, so they can move up on you very fast. And as we've been saying, you won't necessarily see a tornado warning. So if you are in this area, that includes South Muir as well, you need to go ahead and move to your safe place, move to your safe room, and that will means a small interior room. Unfortunately, most of us in Florida don't have basements, but maybe a bathroom. You want to be away from windows. I think a good rule of thumb is put as many walls between you and the storm as possible, because this is a serious situation. And again, Candace, this is just the beginning for today.
Right, yeah. At the end of the day, when we talk about the conditions for tornadic activity, remember we've been really stressing the point about the right side of the storm, the dirty side of the storm, and that is the reason why we're going to continue to track the progress of exactly where Helene moves, because at the end of the day, this overall size of this storm is the reason why we are starting to see impacts as far reaching as what we've been dealing with. So again, this tornado warning has been altered just a little bit, the polygon here. Just checking with the National Weather Service, we have not had any official confirmation down at the surface from anybody physically seeing a tornado at this point in time. But again, this is going to be the story over the next couple of hours. And this is one of the big impacts here in Central Florida that we continue to monitor, because again, it's one of those threats where you think, okay, school is out. It's just a little windy. It's a little rainy here and there. And then all of a sudden we get a tornado warning out of that. And that can easily really overall enhance the storm threat, the wind threat, the damage threat as well. So again, we're going to be watching this one. The rest of Central Florida, by the way, this is just one cell. We are watching another line that is continuing to spiral into areas now of Orange County. This same cell, by the way, was creating several pockets of some fast-moving circulation just before we hopped on here with that tornado warning in Brevard County. So I just wanted to let you know that we are still keeping our eyes on rotation, even embedded within this one here that is now starting to basically curve into areas of Bellevue, the Villages, Leesburg, out through Altamont Springs, Winter Park, Orlando, and Oak Ridge. I also want to turn your attention to the lightning strikes. Lightning strikes are only about 2 within the last 30 minutes across at least this view of Central Florida. We don't typically get a lot of lightning. We don't have that type of instability that you'd get during a daytime afternoon sea breeze thunderstorm. So if we're starting to pop a couple of lightning strikes here and there, that's indicating to us that it is a very strong cell, because it takes a lot of energy to actually get lightning embedded within squall lines. It's just an interesting little meteorological tidbit. So sometimes, you know, during the afternoon, you say, well, this doesn't pack any lightning. It's not severe. Well, that's not the case when you start talking about a tropical system and those squall lines here. All right, once again, we are going to continue to stay on the clock here as long as this tornado warning remains in effect until 10:45, so we just have about 14 minutes left here. This does include only Brevard County. The bulk of the rain is now kind of on that quick northern fringe of the polygon. So if you're watching us right now from Titusville, areas of Mims, I feel like your coverage of the tornado threat has gotten down a bit compared to areas moving into more of the Scottsmore. So once again, let's put those velocity trackers on there, give you a better idea of what's going on. You see the lightning strike. That's one of them. So when we start looking at some of the radar and you're watching this along with us, those are the small little hints as we investigate more, some of those clues on how strong these cells can actually get within some of these fast moving squall lines. So again, we're watching this circulation has been holding on longer than usual, which is why we certainly wanted to make sure that we stay with this circulation. Let me just draw it here in case it's hard for you guys to see. This is the zone that we're talking about right now, right along 95, just south of Scottsmore. So if you are for some reason on the roadways, you have to get to and from, whether it's work or you're running a quick errand, this is going to be the main zone that we're watching with. We're also talking about some pretty heavy rain kind of in this same zone. So let me swap the velocity tracker with radar. And as you can see, a lot of that rain is still kind of on that northern fringe of where that circulation is going. So we're actually seeing a lack of rain right now, right where that velocity is picking up some of the heaviest of the strongest of the rotation. So that is a bit more on the concerning side when we talk about, again, finding those clues and trying to investigate what's actually going on in the atmosphere. Because as of now, unless anybody back there in the weather department has seen anything other than no reports as of yet, but National Weather Service is pretty good that if there is an actual confirmed tornado, this red blinking box would actually start turning purple, and that would mean that there's an actual confirmed tornado or a destructive severe thunderstorm warning, and we're not seeing any of that. So Julie, do you see anything there?
Yeah, I was just checking the National Weather Service chat, and as of right now, there's been no ground truth. Still, obviously, as you've been showing and we've been talking about, still seeing that rotation on the radar, which is why we still have that warning in place until 10:45, so for about another 11 minutes.
All right, let's take a live look real quick of Scottsmore there. There is the heavy rain. There is the wind. Again, picking up a lightning strike or two around that area. And again, that's indicating to us that this is a storm that is packing up a lot of instability and a lot of moisture with it. So you can see the raindrops there. But there are people on the roadways. Now, are there as many people as a normal day when we aren't under a tropical storm warning? I'm not sure. But certainly making sure that if you don't have anywhere to go today, just make it a nice night. Maybe, you know, have a nice little time at home, just making sure that you're staying weather aware and making sure that you're staying tuned. So if there is anything that does change quickly, like they tend to do in tornado warnings, it looks like they just reissued a larger one.
Yeah, it looks like it was extended farther south. I'll run back and check and see the text with that. It looks like that is now
okay. This is now till 11. Okay, so let's pop back here to our radar. So while we were showing you the live look out there, National Weather Service has now issued another tornado warning. Basically, what it seems like they're doing is they're following along that same little circulation that we've been watching. Remember how I told you it was starting to get to that northern end of that tornado warned zone? That has now been extended. So again, if you're watching us right now from areas from the past tornado warning, that looks like it's going to pretty much expire as most of that rain has pushed out. The threat has really pushed out as well. So let's zoom in here. So now this new polygon does include a much bigger swath of Brevard County. So let's first take you to the actual location of where this warned area is. Again, it just takes that northern fringe of that last polygon of that tornado warning and has now extended it further north. So Scottsmore, this extends out to Oak Hill, Maytown, up 95. So if you're traveling up to 95 into more of the Edgewater, New Smyrna Beach, Samsula, this whole zone here, right up to right up to 44, that is where that forecast potential for tornadic activity will lie. Let me see if it's, let's go. There you go. All right, let's pop the velocity and see if we can find that circulation again. Well, there it is. That's obvious. That's an obvious one right there. All right, so you see the reason why the National Weather Service has now extended that. This little tight couplet, this little circulation of red and green kind of tied up together. This is the couplet that we've been watching since it's been as far south. It was the Gulf of States, wasn't it? Try to remember which one it is. But anyway, so it was traveled all the way north, basically traveling what seems like almost traveling right along 95. So Scottsmore, this is the zone that if there is a confirmed tornado on the ground, not only do we have the circulation, right? We have the lightning strikes that are basically telling us that there is some sort of strong cell going on. Let's check the shear here. Let's see. And again, now we get some shear involved with this. The reason why we look at shear is because circulation happens first on the horizontal plane, and the moment you get that shear, you get that difference of speed in height, that's when we start seeing that circulation, that tunnel of air start rotating, and that's where we get that spin that goes from cloud to ground. So again, you don't want to see a lot of shear, and unfortunately we are starting to see some of that. I forget to keep putting the pixel query on there, Julie.
There are lots of buttons to choose from.
There are a lot of buttons, so let's pixel query this. Again, this seems like it's going to be minimal wind shear, but again, this tornado warning, I should say, is in effect until 11 o'clock. So we still have about 22 minutes or so left on the clock here.
Yeah, and that new warning encompassing Volusia County, again, that is until 11 o'clock. And one thing interesting, Candace, you were just showing how it was traveling basically right along I-95. The speed with these storms, moving around 30 to 35 miles per hour, that means even if you're in an area where you're like, oh, it's not so bad, it's okay. But if you are in that polygon all the way up to New Smyrna Beach, it is time to go to your safe room, take cover, because these storms are moving fast today.
They are moving fast. You were saying 35 miles per hour. Now, mind you, that's not wind gusts. That is basically, this little cell is moving at a clip of about 35 miles per hour. Let me zoom in here real quick and see if I can. So again, for some reason, they normally when they want to expire a tornado warning and it's too close to it actually expiring, they'll just leave it there. So even though there is that blinking all the way down through South Mears, you can see there's no real concern for you guys. So the real threat has certainly gone down. And it does look like we are starting to see a little bit of that rotation. I'm not sure. Maybe I've been looking at the screen for too much. But it does look like that circulation is starting to broaden out just a hair. Not a lot, but we'll take any type of broadening. The moment you broaden out that circulation, you kind of think of a figure skater. The moment the figure skater opens its arms, then that's when things start to slow down. So the broader that circulation goes, the slower that spin is expected. But you can see that if there is even a tornado out there, and if there is a confirmed one on the ground, which there has not been, but if there is, it's going to be very hard to actually spot it because look how much rain is falling kind of in this zone. Let's look at some of the overall threats real quick. Oh, it likes to get stuck on my finger sometimes. All right, so let's see. So we have here the awkward silence of me trying to figure this out. Sorry, guys. All right, so rainfall rate's not too bad at this point in time. Taking a live look outside, there is Daytona Beach. Not an ideal beach day, that is for sure. So we're talking still pea-sized hail embedded within some of this action right now that we're picking up on the radar, but you can see right around that cluster of the tightest circulation that we certainly can pick up right now with that radar signature. It is still showing rainfall rates there. That's about 2 inches of rain falling per hour.
Yeah, and remember, that means that's a lot of rain coming down all at once. So as we've been saying, you are not going to see a tornado warning or a tornado coming at you if there were to be a tornado on the ground, which at this point we have not received ground confirmation of this. We've been watching the radar. The National Weather Service out of Melbourne has been watching the radar and has issued this tornado warning that is now until 11 o'clock for folks in Volusia County. That is now extended until 11 o'clock. So still technically a tornado warning in Brevard County until 10:45. This box will drop at 10:45. They'll clear that off the map. But this is the area of concern for us right now, extending from the Brevard County, Volusia County line up through Oak Hill, heading up toward areas like New Smyrna Beach. I want to go in a little bit closer for you, see if we can get some streets in there. And once again, just a reminder, we are all under a tornado watch today. That is until 8 o'clock. And we've been talking about this for several days, that anytime we are dealing with a tropical system and we are in the front right quadrant, which we are, we have that threat for tornadoes. So this is what we anticipated. Very heavy rain right along I-95 up toward Creighton, really getting hit pretty hard. I'll turn the velocity back on. Candace has been showing that to you, and that gives us an indication of where those rotations are. So we'll put on the storm relative velocity for you. And what we look for on the radar is anywhere where we see areas of green and red together, because that indicates where we have some of the winds traveling toward the radar. Those are the green winds. The red winds are traveling away from the radar. So that helps to get some spin. So you can see we are seeing this area of rotation just to the east of I-95, north of Scottsmore, east of Maytown, beginning to broaden out a little bit. We'll turn on the shear for you, and again, that also gives us an indication of what's happening. So as we look at the shear, we'll turn that on. It looks like a lot of the shear on our radar is indicating that that has moved north. So we are looking at the potential of some rotation again north of Creighton as we take you up to the north of that box. So just to the south of Samsula, but really anywhere in this red box, that is where we could see a tornado popping, a tornado reaching the ground. And all of this is moving very quickly to the north, right around 30 to even 35 miles per hour at times. That is typical for us when we are dealing with these landfalling tropical systems. And we're also talking about Helene as a very large system. So this is just the beginning. We are going to have rain bands moving through our area for likely the next 8 to 9 hours. So this is going to be a long ride for you as we head through the rest of the day. Our entire Pinpoint weather team will be here with you throughout the day, tracking all of this. If you can't get us on TV, we are also streaming online across all of our platforms. Again, here's a wider lookout at all of Central Florida right now. And we've been focusing on this area, this red flashing area, because that is where the imminent danger is. That is where the immediate threat is right now, with that tornado warning up, including Volusia County, until 11 o'clock. Notice, though, I want to show you what's out over the Atlantic. We have more of those rain bands, that heavy rain working inland. I'll loop the radar for you so you can see the last hour or so. And this gives you an idea of how these storms are moving. So they're lifting to the north and then taking a little bit of a turn to the west as well. So you're going to see some more heavy activity moving through Cape Canaveral, through Merritt Island. And typically with tropical systems, we don't see a lot of lightning, but Candace was pointing this out. Where we're seeing a little bit more lightning, that is an indication that we are talking about a little bit more intensity. So that is something we're watching and seeing out over the Atlantic. Pulling wider back out again for you. We've seen some of those heavier rains moving through Orange County, lifting up through Apopka, the Villages up toward Ocala, really seeing some heavy rain right now as well. And more is on the way. Rain chances stay around 90%. And by early this afternoon, I think all of us will be seeing at least tropical storm force gusts, and that threat of tornadoes will stick around for us until around 9 o'clock tonight, or that tornado watch that we are all under, with the exception of Flagler County. Although Flagler County, you still could see isolated tornadoes as well, but that tornado watch is up for us until 8 o'clock tonight. Let's go back into our warned area where you're seeing this red flashing. That is the area that is under that tornado warning. We'll go back to the velocity for you to give us an idea of where we're talking about. We're seeing some broad rotation, so we can turn that on for you. And again, what we look for is the areas that are close together, the red and the green, very close together. The more tightly packed it is, the better chance we have of some rotation. So it looks like some of that rotation is beginning to broaden a little bit, but notice right over Edgewater, we are starting to see a little bit more lightning. We'll turn on the shear for you and show you what we're talking about. Again, shear still being indicated right in this area, just to the south of Samsula. And again, one concern for us is how quickly these storms move. They track to the north around 30 to 35 miles per hour. And so that means they are going to run up on you really fast out there. And we're seeing very heavy rain right in the Samsula area. Also Edgewater picking up a little bit of lightning as well. If you are in this area and you have someplace to go, run some errands, or you need to go someplace where you're going to be driving along I-95, it is not a great idea right now. Visibility likely very low. We're also talking about ponding of water on roadways. So not a good situation. This is what it looks like right now. This is Ponce Inlet. Ponce Inlet, we are talking about, wow, really looking dark out there. And again, talking about that tornado warning up for Volusia County. That is until 11 o'clock. Looking closely at those clouds, you can just see lots of moisture hanging around out there. The heaviest of the rain right over New Smyrna Beach, down toward Edgewater, back down toward Oak Hill. Again, that tornado warning is up for, just dropped for Brevard County and is now up for Volusia County. That is until 11 o'clock. And we are going to stick with you until that threat is over. But Chief Meteorologist Candace Campos, Meteorologist Michelle Morgan is here. Our entire Pinpoint weather team will be with you throughout the day as we continue to navigate this storm, navigate these threats. And this is something, Candace, we've been talking about for the last several days, that this was our main concern. And it's something we deal with every tropical system, unfortunately. And they pop up really quickly within those rain bands.
Right. I mean, and at the end of the day, the National Weather Service saying that there is still no confirmation that there is actually anything on the ground at this point. A couple of our Department of Transportation, or DOT cameras, have been picking up kind of that rotating cloud cover that we tend to see, especially when we start talking about an overall spin already is in the atmosphere because of Helene, but then when you start bringing in some of these storms, that helps start spinning things up. But if that circulation in the sky doesn't stretch and get down to the surface, then we technically don't have a tornado. The thing with this system, though, is really watching for that potential for it to develop.
Right. And so that, again, this red flashing box, that if you live in this area, this is the time when you need to enact your plan. So go to the smallest, most interior room in your home. A good rule of thumb, I feel like we say this so much, but we just can't say it enough. Put as many walls between you and the tornado as possible. You want to stay away from windows. And we're talking about extremely heavy rainfall there. We can go ahead and check the rainfall rates in some of these areas. And a lot of folks have been dealing with flooding where, again, we're talking about that threat of flooding. Okay, so again, there's the tornado warning. That is up for you until 11 o'clock. We have that tornado watch in place for everyone. That is up until 8 o'clock tonight. So we'll go ahead and query some of these rainfall rates for you. Around 2 inches of rain falling per hour in some of the areas of darker green. So again, that's where we're talking about ponding of water on roadways, and certainly just very heavy rain moving across you very quickly. We'll go back to the traditional radar view. I'm trying to get this warning box to go away here. There we go. Let's take you back out and show you what's going on across all of Central Florida, because I know a lot of you are wondering what is happening in your area. We've been focusing on Volusia County because that's where our tornado warning is up. That is in place until 11 o'clock. But from Ocala back down toward the Villages, down through Apopka and Orlando, you're seeing light to moderate rainfall. We can loop the radar for you over the last hour, show you the general movement, and look how quickly these bands are lifting to the north. So rolling through. Some of you seen a little bit of a break right now. We saw earlier some broad rotation down near Epcot. That did not trigger a warning, but that shows us what is going on in the atmosphere, where I do think we'll see a lot of rotation throughout the day today and a lot of tornado warnings. Hopefully none of those actually result in tornadoes on the ground, but we will be here tracking that for you and keeping you up to date and helping you prepare and stay safe in case that is the case. So again, here is your red flashing box. That is where our tornado warning is. Let's go back in a little bit closer for you. Show you what is happening in this area. Some of the more intense activity beginning to lift up toward Port Orange and Daytona Beach, not technically in that warned area. We'll go back to our different view of the radar for you and let you see as we check out to see what rotation, if any, we are still seeing in this area. So on that view, what we look for, again, the couplets, the red and the green clustered tightly together. So that shows us the red is wind moving away from the radar and the green is red moving toward the radar. So we'll go back to the storm relative velocity. Here's what it looks like as we go in. We'll zoom in even a little bit closer for you. And it looks like
I have a feeling that we might actually extend this into more of northern Volusia County at this point, because I mean, we've been tracking a couple of those circulations. There was actually 2 at one point, but now it's starting to look like we're back into just watching that one right to south of New Smyrna Beach. And remember what we talked about before, it's the lightning strikes. Those lightning strikes are a real good indicator of where that's the strongest circulation is. It takes a lot of energy and a lot of instability to pop some of those lightning thunderstorms in the forecast. So even with 1 or 2 in that zone, with circulation, with wind shear, it all has the ingredients to potentially spin this up and stretch that velocity down to the surface.
Yeah, so our radar indicating a little bit of shear still in this area, but again, you mentioned the lightning, so the lightning right over there. Let's go in a little bit closer for you on the radar, show you again what we're talking about. So as Candace said, we could likely see this box stretched a little bit more. Again, getting the indication of some shear right on top of the Samsula area, Edgewater Junction, Edgewater, that's where we have seen some of those lightning strikes for you. And look at the radar. So when we talk about the colors, the reds, the yellows, the oranges, that is how much rain is coming down right now. So as we head up toward Sugar Hill Estates, up toward areas like Ponce Inlet, Allendale, Port Orange, all getting hit really hard with some of those rain bands for you right now. Again, not technically in that warning area. Would not be a surprise to see that stretched a little bit farther to the north, giving you a view again of all of Central Florida. If you're tuning in wondering what's going on in your area right now, this is our only active warning. Let's go ahead and take a look outside right now in Daytona Beach. Again, Daytona Beach, you are not in this tornado warning. You have some rougher activity heading your way, and you can see gray skies, some rain, and we have been talking about gusty winds throughout the day. Yeah, that camera looking really rough out there. See the camera shaking? That is our Daytona Toyota DeLand Kia camera in Daytona Beach. Lots of strong winds out there. I'm not sure what our current wind gusts are right now, but at times we've seen winds gusting as high as around 37, 38 miles per hour along our coastal areas in Brevard County, in Volusia County, even in the villages. We were seeing some of those higher wind gusts. And I think in the next hour or so, just about all of us will be talking about tropical storm force wind gusts. And then especially as we head into the late afternoon and early evening hours, I think things will really deteriorate as Helene's center begins to make its closest pass to our west. Still well out over the Gulf of Mexico, but remember, the wind field with the system is huge. Tropical storm force winds extend about 345 miles from that center of circulation, and we are talking about a powerful system. As of our last update at 8 o'clock, a Category 2 storm. It could strengthen into a Category 3 storm as we continue to roll through the rest of the day. Let's go back to the radar for you now and show you what is happening. Again, if you're just joining us, this area is flashing in red. That is where we have our tornado warning. Candace, I don't know if we've had any updates from the National Weather Service or anything on the chat, but a lot of the intense activity is moving out of that warning box. We'll turn the storm relative velocity back on for you.
It really has started to broaden a lot. Most of whatever circulation that we were picking up around New Smyrna just a few moments ago, and that really shows the story that you were also talking about, how fast a lot of these cells are moving, that the National Weather Service, it takes a moment to trigger these tornado warnings, and then all of a sudden, by the time we get 5 minutes into this tornado warning, most of that circulation went from the southern end of that polygon to the northern side. So I have a feeling that they're going to continue to keep these tornado warnings relatively broad and wide and long, I guess you could say. So it allows some sort of a alert and notification ahead of time, because if these cells are moving at a 35, 45 mile per hour clip, it really is hard to keep up with them with these tornado warnings. So again, they did say that if this area needed to be warned into Daytona Beach, into Ponce Inlet, that they will continue to kind of alternate that warning as of now, but they are now currently planning to let the Volusia tornado warning expire at 11, so we do have another 6 more minutes left, but we're going to continue, of course, to monitor what you're showing right now, Julie. It's that northern end of that, that polygon, where I wouldn't be surprised if we'd get another warning if it starts to tighten up again, that center that you were just showing a few moments ago.
Yeah, we'll go back to that storm relative velocity. Again, starting to see that rotation, that circulation broaden a little bit, not seeing any couplets that are really tightly clustered, but we're also, as we go back to the radar, just the more traditional view that you're used to seeing when you pull up your radar or look at your radar app that shows the rainfall reflectivity. Look at all this intense activity lifting out of that warned area, going up through areas like Port Orange, Ponce Inlet, picking up a little bit of lightning in the Ponce Inlet area. So if you're in this area, likely it's feeling pretty rough for you right now. Islesboro also seeing some of that. This will be lifting up towards South Daytona, Daytona Beach, Holly Hill, and Ormond Beach. And remember, we are talking about very fast moving storms. These are moving right around 30 miles per hour. So we'll go ahead and put a track on the leading edge of the most intense activity. But again, these are moving fast. Imagine driving down the street, or what it feels like when you're driving down the street at 35 miles per hour. That is how quickly quickly these storms are moving. So we'll track these out for you, take them out around 30 miles per hour. So on this path, and again, we're tracking from the leading edge. So the leading edge of the most intense activity will move into Daytona Beach in about 2 minutes. I mean, that is how fast these are going. Holly Hill, you'll see some of this in about 5 minutes. Taking it down toward Tomoka Estates, you'll see some in about 11 minutes. Ormond Beach, 11 minutes for you as well. Mound Grove in about 25 minutes, and Flagler Beach within the next half hour. Here's a look again, once again for you outside. This is our Daytona Beach camera. This is our Daytona Toyota DeLand Kia camera. They're in Daytona Beach, and you can see, man, it's looking even more rough than it was just a few minutes ago. You were talking about a lot of rain out there, gusty winds. When we looked at this camera last time, the camera was kind of shaking. Again, we've been talking about wind gusts close at times to tropical storm force. That will continue to be the case throughout the afternoon, as we'll see more of those strong winds moving in as Helene continues tracking off to the north and northeast. And we did just get that 11 o'clock advisory on Helene. Maximum sustained winds now at 105 miles per hour. It is a Category 2 storm nearing Category 3 status. So it is getting better organized. It is moving, it is getting better organized and getting stronger, which is exactly what we have anticipated. It's moving to that area favorable for all of that development. Now, again, taking you back here locally, what we are concerned about right now, we have this box here flashing, this tornado warning, but most of the intense activity from that warned area has now moved out of the warned area. And Candace, you were saying the National Weather Service, the chat, they're thinking they'll let that expire.
Correct.
At 11.
Correct.
But that will be, you know, I'm sure we'll see you again soon, because this is one of those days where these storms are continuing to rotate. We've got a lot going on with all of these rain bands working up through central Florida. And Candace, these warnings are popping up quickly. We see that rotation tightening up, broadening out. This is going to be an active day, and everyone really needs to be alert and aware today.
Absolutely. And if the producers can do me a favor and actually switch the source there to links 2. This is the latest track. While we've been on, the National Hurricane Center has officially issued its 11 a.m. advisory. Right now, the winds have increased up to 105, so it increased slightly, still anticipated to become a major hurricane before making landfall. There has been back and forth intensity, uncertainty a bit on how strong Helene could get as it approaches what looks to be still really focused on the Tallahassee zone, a few miles inland. But of course, we're talking Apalachicola areas here along the Big Bend that we're going to continue to monitor. Now, with that being said, we are also dealing with extremely strong wind gusts at this point in time. So once again, we're talking about that wind field extending outward over almost 300 miles. And that is why here in Central Florida, 1, we're already starting to see those feeder bands, and 2, we're also starting to see those wind gusts. So again, right now we are clocking winds at about 29 to 31 miles per hour across our northwestern zones. But even along our coastline right now in Cocoa Beach, we just had a reported wind gust of 41. This system, by the way, is still 100 miles away. So we are still watching for the system to develop and continue its progress as it continues to make its way closer towards the coast. So once again, let's switch over. Sorry, producers, back to links 1. There you go. You guys got me. Thank you so much. Again, we are watching for the final end to this tornado warning that, of course, the National Weather Service did mention that they are going to allow it to expire at 11 o'clock. That should be done in the next 10 seconds or so if the clock under my camera here is accurate. But once again, let me just pick up the velocity for you just in case. Again, we're going to be watching for that potential. Again, most of that circulation has broadened out. So we have a cluster of red and a cluster of green, not tightly up close together. So that's certainly good news when it comes to the potential for any isolated thunderstorms within that one couplet there. So again, all looking better. Let's look at the shear. Hopefully we're not seeing too much of it. You see, also notice that the green here, the little green blob showing that wind shear, also has started to weaken as well. So overall, good reports here, and it does look like officially we do have that tornado warning that has now been discontinued. It has finally expired. Actually, not discontinued. They have expired it. So again, we are going to be continuing to watch the progress of this cell, this one big squall line that's going to continue to kind of loop around parts of Central Florida. This is going to be a zone, though, that we are going to continue to watch, because even before we came on with that tornado warning that happened in southern Brevard County, moved through Brevard, moved into Volusia County, and then finally started to kind of broaden. These cells are moving fast. It's not that it's a strong cell, it's that the circulation starts and then we have to track it. And because it's moving so fast, we have to continue to extend those tornado warnings. So it was one real big circulation that we were watching, and then we just kind of traveled northward along with it. So again, we're going to continue to watch the progress of this, of course, over the next couple of minutes, making sure that this actual center of circulation doesn't tighten up. So I'm going to hold on just for a few more minutes, watching for, again, that potential. But now that we don't have a warning, let's kind of look outside of just Brevard and Volusia County. So let's first start Daytona Beach. This is not sure if we can get a live look there from the producers. We're on the same wavelength. All right, there's a live look outside right now, Daytona Beach. Again, we're starting to see a lot of that cloud cover, a lot of that heavy tropical downpours. Now, we're used to seeing red on the radar this time of the year, right? We get those afternoon showers, we get those afternoon thunderstorms, but when you start packing in a lot of that tropical moisture within some of these cells, we are going to continue to see it. Which beach is this? All right, this is just a close-up of our Daytona Beach camera. Rough surf out there. The camera's a bit tilted there to the side, but you can get the gist of it. It is cloudy, it is rainy, it is windy. We do have a high risk of rip currents out there. We have a high surf advisory. So just glad to first off see that there's nobody on the beaches, because sometimes we get that we take a live look outside in Daytona Beach and you've got some of the surfers or people trying to kind of take in the overall experience of experiencing tropical systems. We do have a lot of tourists out there that also want to snap some pictures. I understand it, but at the end of the day, we need to, of course, be as safe as possible. So before we actually hopped on air with that tornado warning, we were actually tracking several quick little areas of circulation that we were tracking. As Julie mentioned a little earlier, it was around the theme parks, around Epcot. We were watching, wasn't anything confirmed. It wasn't even tight enough of a circulation to actually spark a tornado warning. So, of course, we're going to continue to watch it, because within some of these cells, it won't take much to quickly spin up any tornadoes. I'm just kind of riding along some of this velocity markers here and seeing. I'm not seeing anything too worrisome, so that's certainly some good news. Let's look at some of the shear around Central Florida. Not seeing too much either. All right. I think things are looking better. We are watching a cluster of those thunderstorms just offshore there in Brevard County, but most of it still shifting. The bulk of it is still offshore. So let's take you here. Let's take you guys to Brevard County, Melbourne. We were just there a few days ago. They're hitting the roads in Melbourne right now. Titusville, seeing some of the heaviest of the rain right just north there on along the beaches just north of the Cape. Areas of Rockledge also seeing some of that heavy rain right along the 528 moving into Orange County. And then the rest of southern Brevard County, we are looking pretty good to go at this point in time. But let's talk about a little further south. How about Key West? This area has been inundated with those big time waves that have been clipping parts of the, never mind, our camera does not work there now. But we are going to continue to watch this. We have a lot of cameras across Central Florida that we're also watching for this next kind of batch. Let's actually put this into motion here, show you what how fast some of these are moving within just like, let's say the last 30 minutes. You can see how quickly a lot of this is. Again, that tornado warning was because we're putting it behind in time. Here's a live look from our Mount Dora camera there in downtown Mount Dora. There are some people out there. People are trying to get some stuff done. Not sure how many of the shops there are open because of all the tropical storm warnings that are in effect. A lot of people hopefully just kind of staying home, just making sure that they're staying safe as possible. The good news is that we are looking much better. Conditions are improving nicely. A lot of the circulation is, of course, starting to expand and weaken, so there's certainly some good news. We, of course, wanted to hold on just in case. If we can just jump back real quick before we leave you to links 2, I wanted to show you again the progress of Hurricane Helene. The next advisory officially will be at 5 o'clock, but the sustained winds have increased to 105. This is the new advisory as of 11 a.m. while while we've been on. Again, we are watching for the potential of it strengthening into a Category 3 storm before making landfall later on this evening, just after about 8 o'clock. So we're talking about maybe 9 to about 10 o'clock, possibly seeing a landfall somewhere pretty close to areas of Tallahassee. That forecast cone has narrowed considerably. Now, we have seen the system strengthen a bit within the last advisory, so we have upped those winds from 100 to 105. I do want to show you real quick, this is certainly effects that all of Central Florida are feeling right now. Our wind gusts within the last 30 minutes, clocking 35-mile-per-hour wind gusts straight out of the southeast there in Orlando, 26-mile-per-hour winds there in Daytona Beach. Cocoa Beach had a 41-mile-per-hour wind gust there, peaking just a few moments ago. So, of course, we're going to continue to keep our eyes on not only the winds, but the rain, the storms, those squall lines, which is why it is crucial that you have our Pinpoint Weather app, our news app. If you have to go anywhere today and you want us kind of on the go, we are also going to be streaming on YouTube. Jonathan Kegis, as well as David Nazario, our entire weather team, will continue to monitor all this. They're going to be streaming all throughout the afternoon and into the evening hours. So wherever you need us, we've got you covered. If we can jump back to Links 1 real quick, kind of just show you what's going on. So yes, we're going to be streaming live on News 6 Plus, clickorlando.com. That will be continuous coverage. We're going to take a little bit of a break here between now and the 12 o'clock hour. We, of course, as conditions continue to ramp up and conditions remain unsteady and pretty unstable, we're going to continue to follow this with you. I'm going to stop the clock here so that way you don't see that polygon there blinking in the distance. So anyway, we will send you back now to the Price is Right. I want to watch Price is Right as well. We, of course, will bring you any type of warning to areas the moment they come to you. Of course, if not, we'll see you right here on News 6 starting at 12 o'clock.
This has been a News 6 breaking news alert. For continuing coverage of this developing story, go to clickorlando.com.